Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Sarah Fenske. There is an unusual art exhibit opening this weekend. It's called America's Mythic Time. But this isn't about the cowboys of the Old West or the glorious melting pot. The theme is, quote, mass incarceration and forms of opposition to it. And it's brought by the Luminary on Cherokee Street in collaboration with ArchCity Defenders. They're the nonprofit law firm that's taken on policing for profit and is now seeking to close the city's workhouse jail. Now, James McAnally is the founder and executive director of the Luminary. Here's how he explained the appeal of this show and working with ArchCity.
It really is a kind of true collaboration of us bringing the artists and this kind of public engagement that the Luminary has a long history in, and then bringing ArchCity Defenders, which has a public presence, but really so much work it's done in courtrooms. It's done away from maybe the public eye in that way. And so for us, it's really of a longstanding interest to connect our work and the work of artists with questions that impact our neighbors, questions that are important in our, certainly, questions around mass incarceration and debtors' prisons and things like the workhouse were really an amazing place to start and to sort of tease out how artists can respond to these questions.
That's James McAnally, and he's talking about the Luminary's soon-to-open art show, America's Mythic Time. And joining us in studio to talk about it is Kevin McCoy. He's part of the artist duo known as Work Play, and he's one of the featured artists in America's Mythic Time. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And we're also joined by Z Gorley, the communications director for ArchCity Defenders. Z, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So what do we mean by America's Mythic Time?
Well, I'm happy to share an interpretation of it, and hopefully, Kevin can chime in here too. So I think the idea behind Hortense Spiller's idea of mythic time is that we as a society have progressed to a point of racial equity, and I think that she challenges that we really haven't. And so these forms of racism and white supremacy that have played out since the inception of this country haunt us to this day very actively and painfully. And I think that, the pieces in this show, as well as the way that they're connected to ArchCity Defenders issues and what our clients survive on a daily basis, are deeply linked to that concept.
So the myth is we think everything's all good. We've had a black president. Everything's been taken care of. We're not all good. Is that the idea?
I would say so, yes.
Correct. And, I have a cousin that's currently in jail right now. He's been in jail for about 7 years. And it makes it very real to you when you have a loved one that's affected by this system. I still to this day don't know what he's in there for. We've been actively communicating back and forth, and he told me a few things about working in the laundry facilities and how much he's paid versus how much they actually make per prisoner. He completely shut down, so I think something has happened while he's been in prison, so it's been hard to communicate. But the purpose of my wife making this work is to bring exposure from people that are in these situations.
So these situations and this idea of the mythic time, how does that end up playing out in the work that you have in this show?
Yeah, so Z and I have been communicating via email, and they sent me some information from a lawsuit, and I pulled actual documentation from that lawsuit so people can see for themselves that this system is designed to punish the poor. It costs to be poor, so you have bail that is set at an exorbitant rate that people cannot afford, therefore they stay in prison.
And Z, so giving him actual excerpts from lawsuits, is this something that you see in other works in this show, or is this something unique to Kevin's work with Work Play?
Yeah, great question. So, definitely been fortunate to be communicating, with Kevin as his pieces is coming to fruition and really centering on this issue of bail. And there's another artist, that we've been collaborating with, Jordan Weber. And so his piece, I don't want to give it all away, but if you check out ArchCity or the Luminary's Instagrams, you'll see a sneak preview of what it looks like. Essentially, it's a front stoop with a chrome mirror at the top that's going to read "Close the Workhouse," and it will have it's meant to really represent that traditional St. Louis stoop, that you have in springtime and summer, people just outside talking and speaking and joking and whatnot. And so the idea is that there will be resources like examples of the Close the Workhouse report there, as well as some of the reading library materials from the pop-up library booked that we're going to be having as well.
Kevin, how unusual is it as an artist to actually be engaging with the text from a lawsuit? This seems like something that is not necessarily normally a part of your work.
Well, this is not the first time pulling text from, actually I worked with FBI documents as it pertained to the Black Panther Party and sort of the illegal surveillance done by Hoover on, as he called them, black radicals. So it's really interesting to get actual documentation from a lawsuit to bring more exposure and to really have these people tell their stories in these documents.
Now, James McAnally, who we mentioned earlier, he's the executive director of the Luminary, and he stresses that this is not just about looking at art hanging in a gallery. Let's listen to what he told our producer, Lara Hamden, about that.
I mean, within the show, there is the kind of exhibition itself. It's being extended. ArchCity Defenders prepared a really thoughtful library. People can spend time in the space reading through different materials. I think it's a show that you need to spend time with. So we're really interested in this interplay between kind of taking in the exhibition and experiencing just as artwork and as a starting point for dialogue, but then really there are opportunities for people to actually get involved in these issues and specific avenues for them to kind of connect with the organizing already happening in the city.
And that's James McAnally of the Luminary. He briefly mentioned some of the things that you hope will come out of this or other facets of this that go beyond just looking at the art in the gallery. But I want to go more in depth for people who might be interested in joining. Z, can you tell us about Booked? That's a reading library.
Right. So the books in the library were really selected by ArchCity Defenders, and namely our co-founder, Michael John Voss. And so you're going to have titles that talk about, policing, Ferguson, mass incarceration, some books that, are more historical in context. And, what we really hope is that, people, first of all, come out to this exhibit and reception on Saturday evening. And like James said, spend time, if they're not familiar or connected to these issues, that they really increase their awareness and ideally begin to participate locally. And we know that there are several opportunities to do that. And just to mention one of the upcoming things that will be part of the programming for this exhibit is Close the Workhouse's monthly movement meeting. So there's actually one happening this evening, but the official exhibit programming is going to encourage people to turn out to the March movement meeting.
And will the meeting be there then in the gallery, or?
Yeah, so it will be at the Deaconess Center on Van Venner.
Okay.
So
I like to chime in on that. So my cousin and I communicate via phone.
And is he's in the workhouse, your cousin?
No, he's in Bowling Green or something like that. And I had to make it very clear to him, originally when James met with us to be included in this show, I wanted actual handwritten letters from him personally because I think it's a more personal touch. And I had to make it very clear to him. And I said, listen, this is not about art. This is really me using your story to bring exposure to what you're dealing with while you're in jail. Mm-hmm. So no, it is not about art. It is actually about the message and the people that are suffering from this systemic oppression.
And in addition to those events that Z mentioned, there's a screening of Wade Gardner's documentary film, Marvin Booker Was Murdered. Can either of you tell me a little bit about that film?
Yeah, so I believe that film first showed at the St. Louis International Film Festival a couple of years ago. That's when I first saw it. And so Marvin Booker was a homeless street preacher who was brutally killed by Denver jail guards back in 2010. And so the feature-length documentary film really chronicles Marvin's life through the people who knew him and really were blessed by his presence, as well as the reality of violence within this system that's supposed to or is purported to serve and protect. And so it chronicles the civil lawsuit and as organizing movement that took place to really put Marvin's story on the map. And so we really hope to show that film and also have a Q&A conversation following communicating that really ties in these themes and problems with the workhouse and the inhumanities that jail represents here in St. Louis with some of the themes in the film.
Kevin, as an artist whose work is hanging in this show, how involved do you intend to be with some of the more political aspects of what's going to go around it?
As much as I can, seriously. And as a matter of fact, Z and I have been communicating about doing some sort of campaign and using my design background to bring even more, facts and figures so people understand some of the numbers. And so I don't think this is going to stop here. I think it's going to inspire us to keep pushing forward and working collaboratively together.
So Z, one more. Sorry.
Oh yeah, and just to add to that, one of our hopes is that that there can be opportunities for collaboration, just like Kevin mentioned, that organically come from this. And so hoping that people get engaged with these pieces. I read this quote somewhere that was like, you can see a piece of art for 1 minute and it impacts you for your entire life, and so just really having those meaningful, visceral experiences, I think, is possible not only when people will go to this exhibit, but long after. And so, we're definitely very hopeful about what can come about because of this.
So the show is America's Mythic Time, and that's at the Luminary on Cherokee Street. If people want more details about any of these specific programs that we've talked about, is the best place to go the Luminary's website or ArchCity's?
Yeah, probably the Luminary's website. And I know on Facebook, there is a Facebook event that we have been centering a lot of the information.
So look for America's Mythic Time on Facebook.
Exactly.
Well, Z Gorley, Communications Director for ArchCity Defenders, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
And Kevin McCoy of Work Play, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.
St. Louis Public Radio's The Gateway gives you the day's news first thing every weekday morning. From the ever-evolving relationship between St. Louis City and County to developments in the Missouri and Illinois state capitals and reports from our correspondents in Rolla and the Metro East. We put it all in a roughly 10-minute package with clarity and context. Download The Gateway wherever you get podcasts.